I was deep in the archives of the Helen Hayes Art Foundation, surrounded by the soothing scent of aged paper and turpentine. That comforting stillness broke when my phone buzzed. It wasn't a text. It was an email from my sister, Michelle. She had sent it to the entire family council. My father, Michael, my mother, Lisa, and our Uncle Robert. The subject line hit like a punch: board decision, foundation dissolution, and Q4 management fee. My eyes scanned the message quickly. The board has voted to liquidate all assets of the foundation. Irene's curatorial contract is hereby terminated. Her residency stipend is revoked. A management fee of $10,000 per month is now in effect. My stomach turned to ice. Then, one by one, the replies appeared below. My father wrote, "A difficult but necessary decision." My mother added, "Agreed." And finally, Michelle's response, "Execute." Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? If you have, tell me in the comments. I'd like to know who else understands. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. My breath caught for a second, but then everything inside me went still. Focused. Sharp. Execute. I whispered into the empty room. Fine. Across the archive, Margaret looked up. 74 years old, she had served this foundation and Aunt Helen nearly her entire life. Her expression was pale. She felt the shift before I even spoke. "Margaret," I said evenly, "lock the main gallery doors. We're in lockdown. No one enters or leaves without my clearance." She nodded once, quietly, and moved to the entrance. I headed straight to Aunt Helen's office, my office now, and shut the door behind me. I sat at her massive mahogany desk and opened my laptop. Not to reply, to act. I logged into the asset management system. My fingers flew across the keys. First step, the internal inventory. I opened the admin console and triggered the curator's seal, a protocol Helen and I had built years ago. It required 2 authorizations, mine and Margaret's, for any movement, sale, or even internal transfer of a single piece. Within seconds, the digital catalog was frozen solid. Next, the external collection, about 60% of the total, our most valuable works, kept off-site at Fortress, a secure art storage facility in Delaware. I picked up the secure line. "Fortress, this is Irene Hayes from the Hayes Foundation. Initiating full asset lockdown. Authorization code Delta 7. The man on the other end paused. His tone was crisp. "Ms. Hayes, Delta 7 authorization confirms a full stop freeze. Please confirm." "Confirmed," I said. "All assets in Vault 7C are to be locked immediately. No access or transport requests granted. No exceptions, not even for board members." "Understood." Vault 7C is now under full preservation seal. Nothing moves. I hung up. Michelle believed she was firing the staff. She had no clue I was the one holding the keys. She just tried to sell a $15 million collection, and I had just shut her out of it completely. The phones began to light up almost instantly, a chorus of panic. I let it ring. First, my mother. I watched her name flash on screen. Silence. Straight to voicemail. "Irene, what on earth are you doing?" Then Michelle called. "You've locked the archive accounts. You're making a mess." "Irene, Suarez is waiting for the catalog. You need to unlock it now." Her voice wasn't frightened. It was irritated, the same tone she used when I spilled juice on the carpet as a child. To her, this was an inconvenience. Then came my father's call. Silenced. "I don't know what game you're playing, but it ends now. Your Uncle Robert and Michelle have worked on this liquidation for a year. You're embarrassing this family. Be a professional." A professional. That word almost made me laugh. I didn't respond. I just sat there in Aunt Helen's office, listening to the voicemails pile up like debris. They weren't upset that I was betrayed. They were furious that their cash machine had stopped dispensing. Then my phone lit up again. This time, a text from Michelle. Of course, calling would imply a discussion, and she didn't do discussions. She issued commands. "Whatever you think you accomplished by calling Fortress doesn't matter. Our lawyers will lift the seal by morning. You're only hurting yourself. You have 24 hours to vacate the apartment before we change the locks." I typed back, hand steady. The apartment is covered under my curatorial contract. The art belongs to the foundation, not you. Instantly, the three dots appeared. She was typing fast. Angry. Good. Her reply came seconds later, and it was the one that cut the deepest. You are the foundation we're dissolving. You're not family, Irene. You're just the help. And the help is being fired. The help. The word just hung in the air like smoke. All those years of loyalty, patience, devotion, every late night spent sitting with Helen so my parents and sister could jet off on vacation. All of it reduced to that one dismissive word. That text wasn't just an insult. It was permission. The moral clearance I needed to do what came next. The following morning, I wasn't at my apartment. I was sitting in the soft, leather-scented office of David Fields. David was 68, with a gentle face and eyes that seemed to have seen everything a person could see. He'd been Aunt Helen's estate attorney for 3 decades, and he greeted me with a weary, knowing smile. Irene, he said, motioning toward the chair across from him. I've been expecting this call for 3 years. Helen told me this day would come. I slid the printed copy of Michelle's email across his desk, the one demanding $10,000. They're saying they'll liquidate the whole collection, I told him. They're ending my contract. David, can they actually do that? He slipped on his glasses and studied the page, exhaling as he leaned back in his chair. Well, he said slowly, they can certainly try. He turned his large monitor toward me. Your Aunt Helen was a brilliant woman, Irene, and a deeply cautious one. She built this foundation in 2 layers. He opened a document on the screen. This first part, he explained, is the operating board, your family. Michael, Lisa, Robert, and Michelle. They run the day-to-day business, the budget, gallery hours, payroll, all of it. He peered over his glasses. And yes, technically, they have the power to end your employment as curator. My heart sank. The air seemed to drain from my lungs. So that's it, I whispered. They win. David raised a finger. No, you're not hearing me. I said they control operations. But they made a crucial mistake. They confused operations with ownership. He clicked to another file, a dense, scanned document. The original trust indenture, he said quietly. Helen created a second entity. It's called the Preservation Trustee. The operating board manages expenses, but the Preservation Trustee holds absolute, unbreakable veto power over any sale, disposal, or transfer of an asset. They can't sell so much as a picture frame without the trustee's written consent. I leaned forward, pulse racing. Who is it? Who's the trustee? David smiled faintly. He scrolled to the signature page and tapped a finger on one name. You are Irene. I froze, staring at the screen, at my own name, Irene Hayes, appointed upon the death of Helen Hayes. I don't understand, I stammered. I never signed anything like that. I'd remember. Oh, but you did, David replied, eyes glinting with amusement. It was hidden inside your employment contract, page 42, Appendix C. Helen wanted it that way. She was afraid your family would pull exactly this stunt. She buried your authority in plain sight until the day they overplayed their hand. He leaned back, voice steady. They can fire you as curator, that's fine. But for the past 3 years, you've also been the sole preservation trustee. You have final authority over every piece in that collection. In short, Irene, he said with a small smile, you hold the kill switch. I sat back, all flooding through me. All this time, I'd thought I was the help. Aunt Helen had made me the boss. David reached for his phone. Well then, he said lightly, I think it's time we send your family a formal cease and desist letter. Don't you? The letter hit them like a freight train. The calls from the staff stopped. The frantic texts from my father stopped. Silence fell. Heavy, furious silence. But David didn't look relieved. He called me back to his office that same afternoon. The letter halts the liquidation, he said, tapping a pen on his desk. It buys us time, but there's something else troubling me. He turned his monitor toward me again, revealing the foundation's financial ledger. Michelle's been handling the operating budget for 3 years, he said quietly, and I've been reviewing her expenses. He pointed to a specific line on the report, A wire transfer of $150,000 made 6 months ago to a vendor listed as Fine Art Restoration Services. I've never heard of them, I said, my stomach tightening. I never approved any restoration work. They're an LLC out of Delaware, David replied. Formed just last year. No visible business activity. Irene, I think she's been skimming. That sentence hit me like a physical blow. On the drive back to the foundation, a sick unease spread through my veins. When I arrived, I found Margaret in the archives, carefully recataloguing a series of lithographs. Margaret, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Those Degas sketches, the ones Michelle insisted on sending out for cleaning last year. Where are they? She frowned, confused. Vault 4. She was very specific about those. Said they needed climate stabilization. We stepped into the climate-controlled vault. There they were, 6 small, exquisite framed sketches of ballerinas and women by Degas and Mary Cassatt. Margaret slipped on her white cotton gloves and lifted the first piece from the rack. She carried it to the inspection table and held it beneath the bright raking light. She was silent for a long moment. Then she whispered, not to me, but to herself, the paper, it's wrong. It's too new. She reached into her apron pocket, pulling out a jeweler's loupe, the kind used to inspect brushwork and signatures. Pressing it to her eye, she leaned closer to the surface. Her hand began to tremble. Irene, she said, her voice shaking. Get the others. One by one, we removed all 6. She examined each piece in silence. With every inspection, her face grew paler until finally, she looked up at me, her eyes wide with horror. This isn't a sketch, Irene. Look. She handed me the loupe. There's no charcoal residue. No paper tooth. It's a dot matrix. She staggered back from the table. It's a print, a masterfully executed, museum-quality print, but still a fake. They're all prints. I gripped the edge of the table to keep from falling. Oh God, no. The truth crashed over me in one brutal wave. This wasn't about a single $150,000 skim through a fake restoration company. That was just the paperwork to disguise the real theft. Michelle had stolen the originals. She'd replaced 6 priceless sketches, worth millions, with nearly perfect forgeries. And that grand liquidation, the upcoming save auction, it wasn't just a greedy cash out. It was a cover-up. She was trying to sell the entire collection, fakes included, before any legitimate expert or buyer could discover the fraud. She wasn't just manipulative, she was a high-level art thief. And she had tried to sell the very evidence of her crime. It didn't take long before the sound of heavy doors echoed through the gallery. They slammed open, hitting the stops hard. Michelle stormed in, flanked by my father, Michael, my mother, Lisa, and my Uncle Robert. Their faces were red, furious, clutching copies of David's cease and desist letter. What is the circus, Irene? Michelle shouted, her voice bouncing off the marble walls. The preservation trustee? Who the hell do you think you are? I stood calm and centered in the room. David Fields and Margaret were beside me. I'm the person Aunt Helen trusted, I said evenly. You're finished, my father barked, pointing a trembling finger at me. We might not be able to sell the art, but we still run this place. And the operating board just voted you're fired. Pack your things and get out of my sister's apartment. Actually, David interrupted politely but firmly, you can't fire her. And it's not your apartment. He slid a thick document, the trust indenture, across the table. If you'll turn to Clause 14b, he said, you'll see the preservation trustee holds complete and final veto authority over every board decision. You can't fire her. You can't change the locks. In fact, you can't do anything at all without her written consent. The color drained from Michelle's face. All that arrogance, all that confidence gone in an instant. She glanced at my father, then at David, and finally at me. That's when it hit her. She'd lost. But that's not why we're here, I said quietly. I gave Margaret a small nod. She walked to the easel and set a small framed sketch on it, one of the forgeries. Beautiful, isn't it? I asked, stepping closer. A flawless replica, wouldn't you say? I'm curious, Michelle, how much did this one cost you? Just a fraction of the $150,000 you siphoned off. My parents looked stunned. Embezzlement, my mother whispered. Irene, what are you saying? Michelle's poise collapsed. The polished executive exterior fell away, revealing someone terrified, someone caught. Irene, she stammered, taking a step toward me. Her voice trembled, desperate now. Irene, please, we're family. We can fix this. We can work this out. I met her gaze, the same eyes that had dismissed me my entire life. You already fixed it, Michelle. In your email, remember? I turned to David. He picked up his phone and said evenly, Michelle Hayes, we have verified documentation of 12 counts of wire fraud and large-scale art theft. As for the authorities, just then, the gallery doors opened again, quietly this time. 2 detectives in suits stepped inside. Boston Police. Art Fraud Unit, the taller one said, his eyes locking on Michelle. Michelle Hayes, you'll need to come with us. My mother let out a strangled cry. My father staggered backward, collapsing onto a gallery bench like he'd been struck. Michelle didn't move. She just stood there as the detectives cuffed her hands behind her back and led her past the priceless artwork she had tried to steal. Her trial moved quickly. The evidence was irrefutable. She was convicted. Most of the originals were recovered from an undisclosed vault in Switzerland, though 2 were gone forever, sold off on the black market. My parents, buried in legal debt and humiliation, sold their Boston home and retired to Florida, financially and emotionally ruined. As the sole trustee, I assumed full control. I dissolved the old board and rebuilt the Helen Hayes Foundation from the ground up, with educators, community advocates, and art historians. Margaret became head of archives, this time with a proper salary. Together, we turned the gallery into what Aunt Helen had always envisioned, a true nonprofit devoted to education and inspiration. A few weeks later, I sat in David's office. I still don't understand, I said quietly. It wasn't just about the money, was it? David shook his head. No, Irene. She needed you to fail. It's a tragic pattern, the golden child and the scapegoat. Michelle's entire identity depended on being the family's success story. To win, she needed you to lose. She wasn't only stealing art. She was stealing the one thing you truly loved, the thing you excelled at. I sat with that for a long time. Later that afternoon, Margaret came by my office holding a small painting, a modest seascape of Boston Harbor. I found this in Aunt Helen's private storage, she said softly. She painted it herself back in college. It's not worth anything except for the note on the back. She handed it to me. The note read simply for Irene. It was worthless in money but priceless in meaning. I hung it above my desk, in the very spot where a Degas or a sergeant might have once hung. That night, for the first time in years, the gallery was still. No whispers of money or greed. No scheming. No valuations. Only the quiet, familiar scent of oil paint and old paper. As I walked upstairs to my apartment, my home, I finally felt at peace.